Hello, this is Alan welcoming you to the 2035th edition of the Enfield Talking newspaper, Dateline 28th of January 2016. The readers this week are Sonia, Jenny and myself, with Ian on the controls. The items that we will be reading come from our local newspapers, the Enfield Gazette and Advertiser and the Enfield Independent, and are their copyright. Our title music is Country Rock Polka, composed by Pat Priey, Fernand Bouillon and Harry Breuer, and is performed by Jean-Jacques Perry, and is used with his kind permission. Local stories include Sick Sex Predator Spared Prison Term, Backpedaling, Retirement Home to Close as it is a health and safety risk residents' relatives are told, and ISIS video man came from Hindu family and grew up in Palmer's Green. If you are experiencing any problems receiving your Enfield Talking newspaper, please phone Diane de Jersey on 020 8805 6578. She is your listener's representative and will be pleased to help you. Now, we're going to start with Sonia, who will read the first item of local news. Sonia.
Sisters who spent years being sexually abused by a sick predator are furious because he was spared jail, because he has dementia. Pradop Shukla from Edmonton will not spend any time behind bars, even though he abused Pooja and Sita Shah when they were barely 7 and 9. The sisters' names have been changed to protect identities. It took the girls, now 23 and 25, years to pluck up the courage to see justice done. But when their case finally came to court, Shukla's condition meant he was unable to stand trial. Instead, a trial of facts was held over 4 days, and jurors at Wood Green Crown Court unanimously agreed Shukla did all the acts charged against him. The 88-year-old, the former treasurer of the Enfield Over 50s Forum, who at the time of sentence lived at Churchill Court in Ainslie Close, was accused of gross indecency towards a child and indecent assault. The judge banned him from being in the same room as a child under the age of 16 without their parent or guardian present, or spending the night in the same house as a child under 16. He has also had to sign the sex offenders register. But the verdict brings little comfort to Pooja, who lives in Haringey, and Sita, who lives in Enfield. Pooja said, "It was a relief when he was found guilty, but strange. We haven't got justice because he's not in prison. He's out there and can go to the library or wherever he wants. He is sick and he is still a threat." Remembering her ordeal, Sita said, "I knew it was wrong, but I was too young to understand. I told my sister and said I wanted to tell Mum and Dad, but she was scared and stopped me. But then we saw him in India and he did it in a temple, so I spoke up. When the girls told their mother, she took them to the police, but Pooja was too afraid to speak up. Not wanting to put them through further stress, the family tried to go on with their lives, until another girl came forward to say the same thing had happened to her. It is a little talked about subject across the Indian community, but the sisters want to fight for change." Sita added, "In our ethnic community, you don't talk about things like this. People think nobody will marry a sexual abuse victim. But there is nothing to be embarrassed about. It happens in every community. Somebody has got to stand up to sexual abusers. You must not let them get away with it. You are not alone. Don't be ashamed." We were lucky our parents believed us and didn't brush it under the carpet. Remember, speaking up will prevent anyone else having to face what we did. A statement from Mr. Shukler's family said, "The court decided that Mr. Shukler was unfit to stand trial due to poor health. Only one side of events was heard. Mr. Shukler did not have an opportunity to state his case and defend himself against his allegations. Mr. Shukler strongly denies all allegations, and his whole family stand by him."
The council has gone back to the drawing board on the Cycle Enfield scheme after the latest consultation process revealed high levels of opposition to the proposals. Although the first Cycle Enfield consultation for the part of the scheme along Green Lanes showed a majority of respondents backed the plans for partially segregated cycle lanes, the council has admitted that the responses for the second stage of the plans through Enfield Town have met with substantial opposition. While stressing that the figure of 75% against the scheme, as quoted by Enfield Southgate MP David Burrows, was off the mark, a council spokesman admitted that 60% of responses were not in favour of either of the options proposed by the council. The spokesman insisted that the council had always intended to revise the proposals once the initial consultation phase was over, and that the decision to adjust the plans before setting them before the council's cabinet is part of the original timeline of the scheme. The Cabinet Member for Environment, Daniel Anderson, who is overseeing the process, insisted that there had been a huge amount of interest in the schemes. He added, "We are delighted that so many people took the time to tell us what they thought of our draft proposals. As we have always said, we will listen carefully to what people have told us and revise the plans to best meet the community's needs, as we have done with our proposals for Palmer's Green." He added that the Cycle Enfield team would address any significant issues that had been raised in the consultation process, and the plans would be revised before council bosses looked at them again. However, he insisted, "We remain committed to the principle behind the schemes, simply because there is no sustainable alternative." The council spokesman stressed that the responses would not prompt the local authority to withdraw their interest in the £30 million offer from City Hall, and that change to Enfield Town was coming in some form. As the borough's population continues to grow, the status quo sees congestion worsening every year, pollution increasing, and our residents becoming more unhealthy, Mr. Anderson said. This multi-million-pound investment will enable us to address all of these issues while improving the street scene, creating a more vibrant town centre, and encouraging more visitors to the borough to benefit the local economy. Revised proposals will come forward in due course.
Families trying to fight the closure of a retirement home were told it will be unsafe to keep it open. People attended a meeting about the upcoming closure of Reardon Court residential home in Cosgrove Road at the civic offices in Enfield on Thursday last. Enfield Council's Assistant Director of Property Services, Keith Crocombe, and Bindi Nagra, Assistant Director of the Council, confirmed the Legionella bacteria was found in the water last March. But families of people at the home have raised concerns that elderly residents might not survive a move. They say familiarity was crucial, and moving to a new home would disrupt the routine and destroy the bonds that they had created with carers. David Natalie, age 67, of Old Park Avenue, is worried about the effect the move will have on his 95-year-old mother, who is in the late stages of dementia. He said, "I'm not satisfied. I don't think we've come any further in helping her and making sure she stays where she is." Patricia Jacobs, aged 54, of Bush Hill Park, said, "We sat there for hours asking questions, but they didn't offer us a solution. They gave us information that we already know, and I feel like everything is still unresolved." The panel answered questions from the audience and explained they feared keeping the home open could be a health and safety risk, and so planned to move the people who receive care to another residential home while they carry out work to replace the pipes. An Enfield Council spokesman said, "At all times our overriding priority has been the safety of all our clients. Legionella bacteria was found in the water supply, and it was decided by the council to move people out by April 2016 to ensure their safety while repairs are being made. Extensive interim measures to safeguard residents were put in place immediately, and there is no risk to residents, tenants, and day centre users. The building will be closing later this year, and residents, tenants, and day centre users will be moved to alternative provision. We will continue to update them."
The man, thought to be the latest London jihadi featured in an ISIS propaganda video, grew up in Palmer's Green, a TV documentary programme has revealed. The Jihadis Next Door, broadcast on Channel 4 last week, opened with an interview of Siddhartha Dar, 32, also known as Abu Rimasa, the man thought to be featured in the video with another man with a London accent executing people he claims were spies. At the beginning of the documentary, filmmaker Jamie Roberts interviews Rimasa about his background and his beliefs. The 32-year-old, who ran a bouncy castle rental company, lived in Walthamstow, East London, until he jumped bail and left the country with his pregnant wife and 4 young children last year. In the opening scenes, he is asked if he grew up in Walthamstow, to which he says, "No, I grew up in North London, in Palmer's Green." He tells the documentary maker that he grew up in a Hindu family until he converted to Islam when he was 19. He moved away from the area when he got married. Asked if he or his family worry about their safety, he replies, "Yeah, I think that's natural. There are tensions and there is caution as well. You see what far-right groups are capable of. There is this kind of worry and concern, but that's part of the struggle." He is introduced as the public relations man for a group of radical Muslims who organise protests against the British government. In the course of the documentary, it is revealed that he was one of 9 suspected terrorist sympathisers arrested in police raids in East London. He was released on bail after 3 days of questioning and disappeared 2 days later. It is thought he travelled to Syria. The documentary reveals he was last seen at Victoria Coach Station with his wife and children. The programme also showed the radical group Rimasa was associated with, standing outside a chemist's in High Street, Wood Green, handing out flyers promoting their beliefs. They are shown confronting a passing Kurdish procession. The radical group shout, "Allahu Akbar," and some of the marchers launch themselves at the group, only stopping when police officers intervene. The Kurds have been one of the most successful groups in halting the advance of ISIS in northeastern Iraq and Syria.
Tributes have been paid to former Enfield MP Cecil Parkinson, who has died aged 84. The Conservative peer Lord Parkinson served as MP for Enfield West from 1970 to 1974, when the seat was abolished. He was only the second MP for the seat and won in a by-election following the death of his predecessor and Chancellor of the Exchequer, Ian MacLeod. The seat, which includes parts of Potters Bar, was swallowed up by the Enfield North, Enfield Southgate and South Hertfordshire, Hertsmere constituencies. Nick Dubois, the Conservative MP for Enfield North from 2010 to 2015, said, "I met him on several occasions, and he came up to speak here in the last 3 or 4 years. He always has very good stories to tell. He was always very charming and an engaging man." He said he bumped into the peer at the House of Lords after the 2011 Enfield riots and said that Lord Parkinson recalled the areas which were affected. "He asked me lots of questions about the riots. When I started to talk about certain areas, he knew them," added Mr. Dubois. After the Enfield West constituency disappeared in 1974, Mr. Parkinson was elected as MP for South Hertfordshire and retained the seat when it became Hertsmere. He rose to high rank in the Conservative Party and was appointed Secretary of State for Trade and Industry, working closely alongside Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, having served in the War Cabinet during the 1982 Falklands conflict. However, his career faltered in 1983 after revelations that his parliamentary secretary, Sarah Keyes, was expecting his child, Flora. He returned to the Cabinet from 1987 to 1990 as Energy and then Transport Secretary. He became a peer in 1992 and was appointed Conservative Party chairman 5 years later, resigning a year later. Terry Neville, the leader of Enfield Council's Conservative group, said he remembered Lord Parkinson as a charming man. He said, "When I was leader first time around in the 1990s, Cecil was chairman of the party, and I got to know him reasonably well as a working colleague. He was a very decent man to work with and always charming." He said that Lord Parkinson made return visits to Enfield for Conservative Party annual dinners. He would get up after the first course and work the room, he recalled. Hadley Wood resident and Tory activist Anna Evans joined him campaigning in North Enfield during the 1979 and 1983 general elections and remembered a speech he gave in the early 1970s. "He was a very genial, amiable, most pleasant person to be around," she said. "I never knew him be anything other than charming to voters. He was very even-tempered with the volunteer workers."
2 senior schools have topped the borough's GCSE league tables. Pupils at the Latimer School in Hazelbury Road, Edmonton, and St John's Preparatory and Senior School in the Ridgeway, Enfield, achieved 100% pass rates in their GCSEs, that's A star to C, including maths and English. The Latimer School also achieved a 100% pass rate in 5 GCSEs at A star to C between 2012 and 13, but dropped to just 99% last year. St John's School have claimed the title at the top of the Performance League table 17 times in the past 20 years. Highland School took 3rd place in the league tables, with more than 70% making expected progress in maths and English. Winchmore School, the Burnham Grove, achieved 66% in 5 A star to C GCSEs since 2013, up 2% in 2012, while Oasis Academy Enfield saw a drop in pass rates. Southgate School climbed the league table with a 9% increase in pass rates since last year.
The Mayor of London has given out mixed messages over his support of the Cycle Enfield infrastructure overhaul. 2 weeks ago, the Conservative MP for Enfield Southgate, David Burrows, released the results of his referendum after he counted up postcards in favour and against the scheme. He said that 75% of people who replied to his leaflets were against the scheme in Green Lanes as it currently stands. He set up a meeting with Boris Johnson and then announced that the Mayor had instructed the council to halt the entire scheme for 2 weeks. However, while Mr Burrows claimed that Mr Johnson was urging council chiefs to slam the brakes on, the Mayor wrote to council leader Doug Taylor laying out his full backing for the scheme. In the letter, dated January the 21st, seen by the Advertiser, Mr Johnson says, "I am not proposing a halt or a stop to the scheme, merely some time to engage further in order to bring about the widest possible agreement. However, given that Enfield, with the support of all political parties, made a proper, legal and successful bid for its Mini Holland scheme in 2013, it is my view, and Transport for London's, that the A105 scheme has now progressed to a point where any decision on further engagement must be for the council and the council alone." However, speaking to the Advertiser on a visit to Edmonton last week, Mr Johnson was lukewarm in his backing for council chiefs. He said he was concerned by substantial opposition to the scheme in Enfield Town. The official consultation in the Green Lanes part certainly showed a modest balance in favour, and that's very encouraging, obviously, he said. However, my anxiety is that there are a great many people in Enfield at the moment who don't seem to be persuaded about the merits of the scheme. I think this is a matter for local democracy, but my impression is, and something I have to take into account as Mayor, there is still quite a lot of resistance. I hope very much the Council will be able to overcome that resistance to get more support behind the scheme.
Drinkers are campaigning to save a boozer in former cinema in Ponders End from closure. The Picture Palace, on the corner of Lincoln Road and High Street, is one of the pubs chain J.D. Wetherspoon is planning to sell. But regulars and real ale campaigners CAMRA, that's C-A-M-R-A, are petitioning the company to keep the pub open. They said they didn't want to lose the historic pub or see it turned into flats. In a letter to J.D. Wetherspoon, the Enfield and Barnet branch of CAMRA asked for a reprieve for the pub, which has a distinctive decor with murals featuring film stars. The Picture Palace features in the latest edition of CAMRA's Good Beer Guide. In his letter to the chain, CAMRA's branch secretary Owen Woodliff said, "Since it was opened some 15 years ago, it has consistently served good quality real ale, and the present staff are keen and knowledgeable." He said there was a shortage of pubs nearby and few places for real ale enthusiasts to drink. The building originally opened in 1913 as a cinema. It was renamed the Ponders End Electric Theatre in 1920 and got yet another name in 1938 when it became the Plaza. 3 years later, it was damaged by wartime bombs, and it stood empty for 15 years before Enfield Council transformed it into the Howard Hall Community Centre. It was taken over by the pub chain in 2001 and is one of 34 pubs up for sale by the chain. Fellow CAMRA member Andy Hutton of Osborne Road, Palmer's Green, said, "It would be a massive loss to the area. There are few other pubs there." He added, "It's a very well-known pub. They even had a brewer's evening there for a few months ago. It's very sad that it's been chosen for sale." J.D. Wetherspoon said there was no specific reason for picking the Picture Palace as one of the boozers it wants to sell. Mr. Woodliff added that the company had listened to residents when it put up other pubs for sale in the past, and he urged the chain to do likewise for this magnificent pub. A company spokesman said the pub would remain trading as a Wetherspoon pub until it was sold, and customers would not notice any difference in the running of the pub. He added, We understand that customers will be disappointed, and we thank them for their loyalty. Staff would be offered jobs at other pubs, he said.
A new campaign has been launched to declare war on fly tipping, which costs Enfield Council millions of pounds a year to clear up. The local authorities' Don't Be a Tosser campaign is urging people to look after their streets and dispose of waste properly. The council says it's shelling out £4.4 million a year to clear up rubbish, building materials and furniture, which have been abandoned in the borough on its street. Now it wants people to get rid of their rubbish responsibly, rather than leave it for someone else to dispose of. The council's cabinet member for the environment, Daniel Anderson, said, "We're immensely proud of our borough, and we don't want a moronic minority wrecking the environment because they can't be bothered to dispose of their rubbish properly. Fly tipping is antisocial, as well as illegal, and is a crime against everyone in Enfield." Mr. Anderson warned people that investigators would track down those who dump rubbish. "We will not hesitate to prosecute people we catch fouling our environment in this manner, and if they end up in court, they could face 6 months in jail or a fine of up to £25,000, he said. "We are urging people, don't be a tosser, and don't leave your rubbish on the streets of our beautiful borough. We can arrange for items to be collected from your doorstep, or, if you prefer, you can take it to our recycling sites."
Keeping the Queen's borders looking neat and tidy used to be one of Trevor Smith's jobs when he worked as head gardener at Buckingham Palace. The 63-year-old Edmonton resident, who also worked at St James's Park, the oldest of the capital's royal parks, now puts his gardening expertise to good use on his allotment in Goat Lane, Enfield. So, who better than Trevor to recommend the virtues of becoming an allotment holder of one of Enfield Council's 3,000 plots across 35 sites around the borough? "Having an allotment can be hard work, but it is extremely rewarding," says Trevor. "It's great exercise, and it feels really good to be in the fresh air, cultivating your own fresh vegetables, which taste so much better than processed food. There is no age limit. I have known allotment owners aged from 19 to people in their mid-80s. Even when mums with kids cultivate a plot. It really is an activity anyone can do. Anyone living in the borough can be an allotment holder, provided they are aged over 18. There is no upper age limit, and the needs of disabled people can be accommodated. To find out more about allotment ownership, go to www.enfield.gov.uk/info/200027/allotments.
Enfield Southgate MP David Burrows will compete against lords and members of the media in a pancake race beside the Houses of Parliament on Shrove Tuesday. The event will support the disability charity Rehab as teams compete for the magnificent Tin Cup. For more information, visit www.parliamentarypancakerace.co.uk.
We've now reached the end of side 1 of this tape. Please stop your machine now, take out the cassette, turn it over, and we'll be over on side 2 for you.